Welcome to the Times Are Changing podcast. My name is Chase. I'm joined here with Zach. We are the COO and CEO of Golden Aspect. This is a podcast about cutting-edge strategies in digital and social media marketing.
In today's episode, we discuss the upcoming Apple iOS privacy updates that will allow users to easily reject data tracking requests. This could have a huge impact on targeted Facebook ads and negatively affect small businesses. Without any further ado, let's jump right in. In the world of technology today, one concern is growing ever more present in consumers' minds. That concern is privacy. It's becoming more commonplace knowledge now that everybody knows that their data is basically getting sent around all over the place all the time, whether it's through Google or Facebook or any other type of tracking apps or programs. Basically, any app that you use, any website that you use, your data is likely being tracked and shared and sent around to different companies who is going to utilize that data for the purposes of targeted advertising. Now, a lot of people are not too crazy about the idea of their data just being accessible from all over the place, so Apple has taken a stand in an attempt to position themselves as the leading privacy provider in the technology space. Their new iOS 14 update aims for complete and total transparency when it comes to how your data is being used, tracked, or shared at any given time.
So this new update is actually pretty significant. One of the most significant steps we've seen as far as Apple or Microsoft taking a stance towards privacy. And the reason that this is so significant is because previously they added a lot of options for you to see privacy settings and data handling settings if you wanted to go looking for them. But the big key difference with this upcoming feature is that instead of having to go look for it, they're going to show you it before you even download an app. So for example, if you're going to download an app in the App Store, there's a feature that's going to show you both the data that's going to be linked to you and how the data is used to track you. So even before you download an app now in the App Store, it's going to show you what the app is going to track. And additionally, it's also going to let you, instead of opting out, you have to now choose to opt in to data tracking. And this is perhaps the biggest change that we've never seen this on any other big software platform before. This is a huge change because what this is going to do is prompt people then to opt in instead of opting out. And you know that if people are asked to opt into something like data tracking, most people probably won't, and that's understandable because this privacy discussion is something that understandably is a concern to many people. However, from our perspective as marketers, there's a lot of unintended consequences to this that we really want to break down in this video because a lot of people see privacy, they see great, what could be the possible negative impacts of this? Obviously data is just being protected better now. That sounds great. However, unfortunately, because of the way that this data is so important when it comes specifically to Facebook ads, the impact of this might be much more significant and actually worse than people might think. So that's what we really want to break down in this episode because a lot of people see protecting their data as a purely positive thing. However, sometimes you don't think about how this can have ramifications elsewhere.
So to start at the top, what is this new iOS 14 update really going to look like on your iPhone? So there's a ton of different features that they added in to basically be more transparent about privacy and how your data is going to be used. Like Chase mentioned, in the App Store, you're actually going to get a notification now before you even download any app. Apple is basically calling it their nutrition label system for apps, which will be sorted into two main identifiers: data linked to you and data used to track you. Now, depending on how that specific app intends to use your data once you download it, one of those two notifications is going to pop up, and it's going to show you exactly what aspects of your data, whether it's your interests, your location tracking, are being used by the app, and if they're being tracked directly to you, or if they're being sent out to other third-party programs. So before you even download an app, you're going to have the opportunity to see exactly how your data is being used and where it's going to go. And like Chase said, you're going to have to agree to this in order for the app to be able to do this, which you've never had to do in the past. Another feature that is part of this overall update, you may have heard of people being concerned that their phones are listening to them, or that the cameras are on or the microphones are on, Google, Facebook, whatever, they're listening to your conversations and stealing your data. This update puts all of those myths to rest. Most notably because if any app on your iPhone is using your microphone, you're going to see a little orange light in the upper right-hand corner of your phone screen pop on to let you know that your microphone is in use. And if any app is accessing your video camera for whatever reason, or just your camera at all, a green light is going to appear in the upper right corner of your screen. So you will always know whether your microphone or camera is being used by any app. So if you'll finally know if Instagram is actually listening in on your conversations.
Yeah, this is quite a crazy update, to be honest. This is a huge, huge step for Apple to take when it comes to user privacy. And I think a lot of people are excited by this. However, like we said, there's some negative impacts of this. I think a lot of people are really excited about this update for these reasons. Obviously, it's pretty cool now being able to see how the apps are tracking you in all these different ways. Now, one thing to note is that they are still able to track people without you opting in or giving them permission, as long as they do it anonymously. So they are still able to gather anonymous data. However, as we'll discuss, that is a huge downside when it comes to advertising. Is being able to collect data anonymously is not supremely useful from an advertising perspective. And so in that way, this update really could be transformative when it comes to advertising, considering how many people use iPhones. This is a really, really significant step for Apple to take. They're also implementing a lot of these features onto their desktops as well. So if you have a MacBook, a lot of these features will also be included in the new updates on there as well. They're doing a lot of things with Safari specifically. If you use Google Chrome, obviously that will still be in the hands of Google. But Apple's really taking a huge step here towards protecting user data. And it's going to be much, much harder for these advertising platforms like Facebook and Google to get as many data points as they had previously for your data. Not to mention that a lot of these apps have sort of data sharing agreements with each other. And if people are opting or not choosing to opt in to any of these apps and their data tracking abilities, Facebook and Google are going to be hit massively when it comes to the amount of data points that they're able to capture on a specific user.
Yeah, it is really important to notice that a large portion of the data that, say, Facebook, for example, has on specific people is gained through the different apps that they use on their phone. Most of these apps have data sharing agreements with Facebook. So up until now, you're scrolling through the different apps on your phone, you're looking at different things, you're interacting with different ads on different apps, and all of that information is getting reported back to Facebook to allow them to further build out your profile and your interest groups to be able to serve you the most relevant ads that they realistically can based off of all of this information. Now, the biggest sort of bump in the road to this process is, like we mentioned, this shift to opting in versus opting out. Until this update, you were automatically opted in to this sort of data sharing for every single app, and you had to specifically hunt down the option to opt out for it. It's the other way around now with iOS 14. You have to click a button that says, yes, I allow you to share my data. And if you don't click that button, if you don't opt in, Facebook or Google are not going to be able to use your data from that app for targeted ads, for location data, to share your advertising ID. Basically, anything about you will not be allowed to be shared with any potential third parties. And this is where we kind of see, like I said, the biggest block in the road for the advertising system that we all currently know and understand. And these changes to this system definitely have some complicated implications. This episode of Times Are Changing is brought to you by Golden Aspect, our company. We're a digital media and marketing agency that specializes in a one-contact for everything social approach and completely integrated marketing campaigns.
We emphasize high-touch, strong client relationships, and fully integrated marketing approaches. Each of our marketers are proficient in every service we offer and are reachable 7 days a week by text or call. This reliable communication and interaction with your business ensures your contact will be equipped to handle anything you need anytime you need it.
If you want to learn more about what Golden Aspect can do for your business or a friend's business, please feel free to check out our website, www.goldenaspect.com. That is www.goldenaspect.com.
1, 2.
The impact of this Apple iOS update really can't be understated, especially when it comes to specifically Facebook ads and their ability to run targeted ads to users. Facebook has an incredible amount of data points on every user, and a large part of this is due to the fact that they do actually have data from other apps that they have data sharing agreements with. And because Apple is basically shutting all of this down and basically forcing every single app on your phone, you have to opt into every single thing. It's going to be much more difficult for Facebook to gather data. Not to mention the fact that we're not even sure what the options will be specifically when it comes to users actually using Facebook and Instagram. Our bet is that Facebook is still going to be able to track and use data that you acquire on their apps, but obviously they won't be able to share it, which means that other apps won't be able to share it with them as well. So basically what this is going to do is severely limit and quickly outdate the data points that Facebook has on all of their users. They're going to have a much smaller amount of data to pull from, and over time, like very quickly, in the months after this update releases, they're going to start to lose that data that they had previously on users. And what's going to happen is that over time, it's very likely that they're going to start to just have a lot less information on each person, and they're going to know a lot less about them and their interests and their locations and etc. So there's a huge possible impact to this when it comes to Facebook ads, and it's not a great situation to be in as far as it goes from an advertising perspective, and especially from a small business perspective. We're really concerned about how this could impact the profitability of Facebook ads.
Now, that's not to say that every single option for Facebook ads is going to fall apart and that Facebook ads as we know it is going to cease to exist. That's not the case. Like Chase said, chances are they're going to still be able to see what posts you're interacting with in your Instagram feed, what ads you're interacting with on Facebook. They're still going to be able to see what pages you're following and what accounts you're liking and commenting on. So they'll have a base idea for your interests. And the Facebook Pixel will also continue to work on most websites that it is installed on. I know we've talked about this in the past a lot. If you're running a business and you're doing any sort of advertising on Facebook, make sure you have a Facebook Pixel installed on your website. It allows you to track all of the users on your website and match them back to their Facebook accounts so that you can directly retarget or create lookalike audiences off of them. That whole system should stay mostly intact. It seems like the biggest hit that we're going to be seeing here is not so much to what people are actually doing on Facebook or Instagram, but what they're doing on all of the surrounding apps. So we don't exactly know how Facebook ads as a whole is going to be affected by this, but like Chase said, chances are we're going to have much less specific pools of data. The interest groups that we target with our ads are likely going to become overall less relevant. And what this is going to do is it's going to increase the cost to run profitable ads in specific niche audiences. So say your business sells something really specific like cricket food, right? There's a really small audience of people who like eating crickets, and you can target that pretty specifically through Facebook based off of data that they've collected on people who interact with things that are related to food made from crickets. So with that in mind, if you take away, probably half of the sources of data for that pool of people, chances are 3, 4, 5 months from now, some of the people that Facebook thinks are in that interest group may have moved on. Maybe they did a bit more reading on crickets and decided that they didn't want to eat them anymore. And all of a sudden, there's nothing you can do that's going to get them to buy that cricket food. But because of the lack of data Facebook has from this new iOS update, they might still be in that interest group and being shown your ads. So what you're likely going to see here is an increased cost for the same amount of conversions when it comes to specific niche targeting on the small business side of things.
Yeah, it's just really just a huge bummer for small businesses in general. And this is actually the argument that Facebook made against Apple when they released this. There's definitely going to be a number of lawsuits that are going to happen. So we can just only hope that some of these features are changed a little bit because it's truthfully a tricky situation. I mean, both of Zach and I both understand the benefits of privacy 100%. However, from an advertiser's perspective, the trouble here is that a lot of people, I think, feel better knowing that Facebook doesn't have as much data on them. But do you really feel better knowing that, Jimmy's Pizza down the corner now can't run ads targeted at you because Facebook doesn't know where you live in the same way that it did before? So it's kind of a tricky situation because obviously Facebook, people don't like Facebook a whole lot, understandably so. However, so many small businesses rely on Facebook and Facebook ads to support their business and to make profits, that if this privacy updates has a big impact on the profitability of these ads, it's going to mean the potential end for a lot of small businesses, which is really, really unfortunate. And one of the things we want to bring up is that, like Zach mentioned, if the Facebook Pixel still sort of acts in the same way, you should definitely ensure that you have one installed on your website because the Facebook Pixel is one of the most valuable ways to gather data on your consumers, on your potential customers. And if you're able to have that installed and build up your Pixel data, when this update does launch, at least you'll still be able to have a very specific set of users that Facebook knows have already been on your website, and hopefully that will help with your ads. But one thing that it really could impact are the lookalike audiences that Facebook, that everyone in Facebook ads love so much. If Facebook has less data points, it's going to be much more difficult to create as irrelevant lookalike audiences. And so what you could see just generally across the board, what we're sort of expecting is that there's just going to be a drop in profitability and specificity. Just the conversion rates in general are just going to drop because the specificity and the relevancy of these ads are just not going to be as good. You're not going to be able to target people with such specificity, and it's likely that a lot of these data points will become outdated, and you'll be targeting people that really don't have those same interests anymore. And additionally, Facebook isn't able to gain data from other apps, which means a lot of their data points are going to come specifically from within Facebook or Instagram or WhatsApp. And basically what that's going to mean is that, whatever you're looking at on Facebook and Instagram is likely going to be reflected much more heavily in your ads. But maybe what you look at on Facebook and Instagram isn't the only things you're interested in. So it's probably going to narrow the pool of interest. It's going to be really interesting to see, like in terms of looking at what Facebook says your interests are, over the next couple of months. As far as when this iOS is going to update or going to release, they say sometime in the fall. So we have a bit of time here, but it's pretty likely that this is going to happen soon. And we're just going to have to sort of see what happens. But there's a lot of potential impacts here that we're kind of concerned about, especially when it comes to the profitability of Facebook ads.
There's also an actual question to be asked to consumers here, because this entire episode we've been sort of operating under the pretense that when people are shown this notification, they're going to choose to opt out. However, there are some advantages as a consumer to allowing your data to be tracked or shared. For example, if you choose to opt out of all sorts of data tracking, and what we predict on the ad side of things comes to fruition, chances are the ads that you're going to be seeing in your Instagram or Facebook feed are going to be incredibly irrelevant to you specifically. If Facebook has no way to figure out what you're actually interested in, chances are the ads that they show you, you won't be interested in. And I know a lot of people, if you were to cast a survey on daily Instagram users, a lot of them have probably bought something at some point through an Instagram or Facebook ad. So there is a question to be asked to consumers. If you are going to be seeing ads on Instagram and Facebook, which you will continue to be seeing for the end of time, Do you want them to be reflective of things you might actually want to buy, or do you care if they're completely irrelevant to you? So something to keep in mind there as you move forward, as you're presented with these opportunities to, prevent your data from being shared. Obviously, understand and respect the importance of privacy, but just know what you're getting into from a consumer standpoint. You might be getting slapped with a bunch of ads that have absolutely nothing to do with you.
Well, the other thing is that you're probably going to get slapped with a bunch of ads from really big companies. And that's what, truthfully, I'm most concerned about, is the impact that this could have on further monopolizing the big companies in the world today. Because what happens is that a lot of these companies spend, just oodles of money on Facebook ads. And at that point, they're not even super concerned with the specificity of people that they're reaching, because at that point, they're just pushing, mass brand awareness. However, for a lot of these smaller businesses that rely on targeting those users, those specific consumers who are interested in their products, if their profitability goes down, and a lot of these people operate, there's not huge margins when it comes to profitability on a lot of these businesses and a lot of these ads, a lot of people could see a drop. And if it becomes not profitable, a lot of these businesses aren't going to be able to operate, which is again going to further feed into the monopolization of big corporations. I just feel like a lot of people see Apple as sort of this friendly big company, but it's important to remember that while this, I think, is a really, really smart move on Apple's side, because privacy is something that people are very, very concerned about these days, understandably so. This is a really, really tricky situation, because if you're going to remove all of the data tracking options for yourself specifically, the impacts of that are not necessarily just having Facebook, not be able to track you, or not have TikTok be able to track you. Like, there's a lot more sort of trickle down impacts of this that, again, remain to be seen. We don't want to be too doomsday about this until we've actually seen the outcomes, but I have to say that I'm not super optimistic that this is going to be a great update, because I have a hard time believing that most people won't choose to opt out. I think a lot of people, the idea of opting into data tracking just isn't something that's appealing, understandably so, but it's something to certainly consider, because if you're not opting into stuff, you're not going to see as targeted of ads, and you're probably going to end up seeing, like I said, a lot of larger companies, a lot of the same bigger names that are just constantly advertising to you. And I feel like that's not going to be a great thing in the long term when it comes to just competition in the market, which is a really strange thing, because you would think that something as simple as user privacy wouldn't impact this, but it's totally possible, because Facebook ads have just such an impact, especially on small businesses right now, especially during COVID-19, like the ability to advertise online on social media. This has the potential to completely change the social media advertising landscape, and also not to mention the impacts on Google. We didn't talk too much about Google, but it's totally possible that Google ads as well are going to become less targeted and less relevant.
Like we said, we don't know the exact impacts of what this whole situation is going to look like until iOS 14 really starts to roll out in the next couple months. But over time, moving forward, if people continue to choose to protect their data and continue to make sure that they're not being tracked in any of their apps or anything that they do, the ability that we all know and love to run hyper-targeted ads through social media might become a relic of the past. Obviously, the true impacts of this are uncertain at this time, but there is certainly some significant potential that the profitability of small businesses around the country and world may be hurt, and in turn could end up helping some of the large corporate giants to continue to grow and solidify their market share. And that is about where we're going to wrap things up for today. Make sure you follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. We upload weekly episodes every Tuesday. If you're interested in reading our newsletter, please visit our website at goldenaspect.com/timesarechanting. Once again, that is goldenaspect.com/timesarechanting. Thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the Times Are Changing podcast, and we will see you all next week. If you enjoyed listening to this week's podcast, please check us out on social media, Instagram at Golden Aspect Media. If you want to learn more about what our company can do for your business, please check out our website, www.goldenaspect.com. We offer everything from content creation, social media account management, to digital ad marketing campaigns.
Look, if you made it this far, you're obviously interested in this stuff. And are you doing it? Is your company doing it? If you're not, you really should be, because you're missing out, and we're here to help. So send us a message, send us an email, give us a call. We'll be here, ready to help. Take care.